half of them may have been asleep. But anyway, I was up there talking, and like they're all just sacked out on their desk or whatever, because it's a well-known thing that I can go monotone and hum them right to sleep. Then you get amped, okay? Well, it has been, obviously a privilege to get to prepare myself, and it has certainly been a battle. So I hope, and I've been praying for God to speak through me. When I was first asked, it was like, you sure about that, Mike? Kind of a thing. And kind of feel like we've got PhD and now you've got undergrad, going on here. So kind of worked through that, and I was like, hey, it's not me speaking, it's the truth speaking. I know that. It's the truth. So I just need to let the truth work through. So I was like, let's do it. Let's go for it. And as more preparation, I felt like maybe I should address what I do here at the school. What am I teaching? And why am I teaching it? How am I teaching it? Because we're talking to another generation. We're talking to kids that are in unique situations, and the way they learn is different and so on. And it's just going so much faster. How they're learning is changing so fast. At least that's what they say. That's what they're telling us. The experts are saying. So that's where I really felt led, was like, okay, we're going to talk about this term worldview. Worldview is what I teach. It's kind of like it's a mixture of philosophy and theology. It's how they're going to view their world, and I'll define it a little bit. But I've taught this lesson probably about 15 times in my head. And I didn't just want to explain a systematic theology or something like that. Y'all are way too much deeper than that. So I was like, I need God's word, not just like support text for what worldview is or whatever. So I've been working through 1 Corinthians. And it has just been beating me up. And, I would try to find a theme, and boy, so I'm going to try to get this plane up off the ground slowly. Where it's going to land is what I'm not too sure about. Okay, I've tried to find a landing spot for quite a while, and I just never have been able to find that landing zone. I kind of think we'll either end in 1 Corinthians somewhere, or we're going to end somewhere with, I want some feedback on maybe some of your nuggets of wisdom or your pearls of wisdom. Because I want to take it back. As the teacher, I'm always my purpose in learning is, first of all, for spiritual things. I need to learn spiritual things. But I want to learn things that then I can communicate back to these students. And as I was preparing for the lesson, that's how much I realized, oh my goodness, week to week in here, that stuff's translating into the classroom, which is exciting and scary. And then I'm like, well, I kind of need to broaden myself a little bit. So as we head into it, I wanted to try to give a testimony of God's work in my life. Because of the diversity I think is in this room, even from our backgrounds and so on. I want to testify what even like this place means to me with here at Temple Christian School and so on. So before I do that, though, I want to pray. So if we can pray, and then we'll get into it. Father, I've been spending time with you on what to be able to speak, and I'm so grateful. I'm so thankful. I just ask to be able to be a vessel, to communicate your truth. Take those nerves and those things that would distract and make them go away. Help it not to be Stringer talking. I can say Mark here. Help it not be Mark speaking, but you speaking through me. Help me to be a light. Help me to be salt. I'm thankful for these brethren and sisters in Christ and the opportunity that we have, that when we get to come here and we get to study and listen to Mike, but then study for ourselves and those changes that have happened in my life. I'm grateful for that wisdom that's being imparted, and just pray that today we'll take another step towards you, another drip in the bucket, another drop in the bucket of just growing in the fullness of who you are. And we thank you for those drops. We thank you in how inspiring they are, and we pray for one even today, Lord. It's in Jesus' name that we pray. Amen. So my screen keeps going off, so it's going to look for me because, like I said, kind of the printer thing. So if you'll give me a pause here. I wanted to start with kind of how I got here. This place, this geographic place, means a lot to me. It's in my walk. It's in my testimony. I'm sorry, it's saying look right into the camera. Thank you, technology. All right, here we go. It was on this place that I came to a saving knowledge of Christ. It was on this property. It was in a building 3 buildings away. My brother, at the age of 4, I was age 4, my brother was 7. He came to a saving knowledge of Christ. He became a believer. And that first night when he came home, he was boo-hooing and crying to mom and dad about his brother. So, you know, as a little brother, I wanted to please my brother. So I was like, whatever he needs me to do or wants me to do, I want to do it, mom and dad. What is it that he wants me to do? And they're like, well, you're going to have to kind of wait, you know, because I didn't understand. I didn't understand my own sin at that point. It wasn't long after that I was at an Awana. I don't know if you know what an Awana is, but it's basically some Bible study and stuff like that for kids. It's a club-related thing, and they had it here at Temple at that time. We didn't attend here, but went to school here. My brother did. And it was in a building 3 buildings away that I confessed and realized my sin, that it was my sin. I owned it and had to realize that I needed help. I knew I needed help, but I didn't know where to go. I'd been out in the playground, and I pushed one of my best friends in the back. He hit the ground, and I got in trouble. And it was with that trouble that I realized at an early age, I can't handle this sin. I can't resolve this. So when I look back, it amazes me. As you can tell, I'm just like taken by just, you know, the minuteness of I pushed a kid in the back and it was really out of play, but the accident happened and he ended up getting hurt, you know? And it was in that I recognized Mark has a need. I need the saving grace of a Savior. I need my Savior. So I came to a saving knowledge. But that's at an early age. That's age 4, you know? So that walk has a lot of relationship growing. And they look like reassurances sometimes in some groups. You know, you reassure your salvation, you make sure, whatever. But really, it's just a walk of sanctification. It's that walk of growing in Christ and growing in your knowledge of Him. And that's what I kind of experienced for a lot of years. I was trained up. I was in a great, loving home that read God's Word openly. My mother was a superintendent here, so there was a ministry going on all the time. And at home, I saw what was being taught. It was lived out in front of me. So that I was continually going to camps and settings like that, and like, man, I want to be full-time service. That was kind of the phrase, be full-time. Yeah, I want to be full-time because I want to be all God, you know? So I thought the best way to be a servant of God was I needed to be full-time. And I struggled. So that's where my mindset was. I thought to be a good Christian, I need to be full-time. So I reassured salvations and things like that. And it was going into my senior year, I was confronted once again with who I was. And to make a choice, are you going to do what Mark wants, or are you going to do what I want with Christ speaking to me? You know? And I was 100% convinced. I was like, I'm going to do what Christ wants me to do, and it doesn't look normal. And I came home and I kind of let things draw me away the way we let ourselves be drawn away. And I kind of fell asleep again. And I was actively pursuing God. And I decided, okay, I'm going to still be involved in sports and stuff like that. I'm not just going to pursue God wholly. I can do it while I do my sports. Because I was here with Luke, and we were having success in sports, and for me to leave, it wouldn't have been the end all of all things, but I was an important enough player that it mattered that I played, because we were a small school. So I kind of caved into pressure of, hey, you need to support the people around you and sports and different things like that. And I didn't commit myself wholly to God. It was because I just felt like as I was coming out of that camp experience, it was time to drop it all. I was ready to sell it all, want to be sold out for God. And I let life kind of creep back in. So in that, I look back and I learned the lesson of we can't let life creep back in. We have to be totally sold out. And it's in these little things that I see the work of God in my life. So I wanted to be sold out. I wanted to be in full-time ministry. I wanted my life to mean something for God and to give back to Him. So I ended up playing through sports, and then even when I graduated, I went to a Christian college around here, because I was like, well, I'll be a youth minister, I'll be a pastor. It was kind of still a tunnel vision. It was kind of like, this is what it means to be a Christian, is where I was at. I thought it meant be there on Tuesday because we're going to eat a little meal together, and then we're going to go knock doors. Then on Wednesday, we're going to do another Bible study, and then we'll be there for sure Sunday twice. Kind of a thing. And that's not to dismiss that. It was the way I was trained. And it was good training. But it wasn't from the heart. I loved doing it, and I knew that like when I would go and I would work hard for, somebody that needed their yard mowed or something like that, I loved doing it, and there was a joy that came over me in doing that. And when I would go visiting, I knew there was a joy in doing it. Didn't feel like going there, but then when I got there, sort of thing. So I really experienced the joy of serving, but the heart never quite sold out. It never was from Stringer. It was more from mom and dad or peer pressure or religion. Religion was kind of the guiding, hey, do this because this is what Christians do, so that then we grow closer to the Lord. So I'll go to the demo right away since we don't have to explain this. I was clearly working here, trying to make here better. I was trying to do things to get my heart right. Because I knew when I would do them, my heart would follow along, So especially in raising kids and stuff, we are to train up our children, right? And we kind of need to expose them. Maybe that means drag them even, into environments, push them, stomp them in, whatever, to experience the love and joy of serving God. I think that that's a valuable thing. And I'm speaking now, need to kind of do the disclaimer. This is my experience, okay? And as valid as experience is, and just as you hear my background, you're going to know, man, I'm a Baptist Bible person, okay? Bible church or Baptist would be what you would classify me as growing up, So we always need to be able to go to the foundation. You know what I mean? And that's true. We need the foundation always, but it's always like screaming at me in the back of my head. It's part of the DNA. It's part of who I am. And for the good and for the bad. And that's what we're going to kind of discuss is somehow how these things are held in tension. And I want these nuggets of wisdom that will help us to understand that. One of those nuggets is too much of anything can be a bad thing. And I tell that to the kids like at the start. Too much of anything can be a bad thing. And we're not just talking gluttony. There's only one thing that doesn't fit in that. And that's the love of God. The love of God goes outside of, we can't love God too much, right? But I've tried it and tried it and tried it. And to this point, I still haven't found anything else in God's economy that outweighs too much of anything can be a bad thing. Too much of me showing up at church can turn into a bad thing because I'm not taking care of the other things that I'm supposed to be taking care of. You know, too much of me isolating myself and just studying and loving it and enriching and so on and taking in God's word and truth can turn into a bad thing because we're made to not only be fed, but then to feed, to be healthy. So, got married, found my wife, sports went to the side, right? I met Brandy mid-senior year, and boy, sports were somehow able to get conquered at that point, you know? So Brandy and I met, and 3 years later, we were married, and kids came along, so job and responsibilities kicked up, and, you know, we were driving, the old van, you know, pick up kids, take them to church thing was going on, and it was me and Brandy. And boy, we love, and you know, there's fond memories of the kids we got to impact and so on. And we were still just like, hey, you know, in our hearts, we're just going, Lord, wherever, Lord, whatever, you know. But then we're just kind of living life too as it goes along. And an abrupt change happened. God showed some things in our life that we had to let go of, and like within months of letting go, God gave back something that I had to let go. I let go of sport at that point. I actually was a senior at the University of North Texas and crashed after the semester was over, but it was a tough semester. It was one of these where I was taking 12, 15 hours and working heavy to get the family provided for and so on. Sunday looked like something like this. I went into work at midnight, got off at about 10, went straight to school, finished my Monday morning classes, and then at about 6 in Denton, I had a 2.5-hour class that was like a one day a weeker. So I'd get off about 9 o'clock or something, 9:30, something like that, drive to Azle, and then be back up for a 2 o'clock start over here in South Fort Worth at Central. So I did that 16 times or however long a semester is, you know? Just kind of, we were like, we'll tough it out, right? Still young. And I actually made it through the semester. Brandy took care of me. She knew Sunday was sacred. After church, it was sleep time for me because then on Tuesday I would catch up after work. And it was after that, it was the week after, my body tried to recover while I was driving to work. Oop, just fell asleep. Ran right into it, God demolished things, and we realized, hey, school's going to have to stop for now. And that meant no more sport for me because I was a senior in kinesiology at North Texas. And so we were a little lost, but we're like, okay, missions wherever, Lord, just, you know, guide us, take us wherever it goes, we'll do it. And I hope you understand this story. I'm trying to paint the picture of God working through my life. It's, so Brandy was selling Pampered Chef, and I took a trip to Chicago, and I knew I was going to be down a little bit because she was going to be doing seminars and stuff like that, but I was going to travel with her. I got online at a job that I transferred to and saw that Moody Bible had what they called sports ministry. And I was like, what? Sports ministry? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. In that time in sociology of sport, I picked up the idea of, hey, we need to be using sport as a tool. It's not, I don't want to coach football so that I can be the great football coach. I want to be able to connect to kids through something that they're already loving to do. They have a passion for it. Now I'm going to teach them lessons. So it was in sociology of sport at North Texas that I caught on to this. And then I found out that Moody Bible had it. So I took a tour, and I'm walking through the hallways going, wow, Lord, this is like, you want me to go here. And I can tell, you know, it's in my soul. I'm like, I'm supposed to be here. But my family of 4 kids, one of them being 3 months old, you know, and the oldest being about 6, It was like, how does this work? And I'm walking through the hallway. The guy turns around. I could take you to that spot because it's one of those spots, right, in our lives where God just goes, whoop, here you go. This is the plan. The guy turns around and he says, oh, and by the way, you do know that Moody Bible is tuition paid for all students who are accepted. What? Tuition paid? Maybe we could pull this off then, because God gave sports back to me at that point. In my mind, it was like living sacrifice, put that on the altar, you know what I mean, and leave it there kind of thing. And it's always kind of funny stories about the living sacrifices because they always crawl off, right? That's the problem with living sacrifices. They crawl off the altars. I didn't understand the dynamic. I didn't understand this dynamic at the time when I picked that up, but that is the problem with living sacrifices is we crawl right off the altar anytime we want, right? So we see that opportunity, we take it, and man, God uses that time in so many ways. I could testify to the provisions that God does, but you know them well. I'm talking about car parts that are broken, get fixed, and nobody touched it. I'm talking about, praise the Lord, right? Praise the Lord, little things in the whole big picture. But AC units that are broke, and it's going to be thousands of dollars to fix, and they come back next time and go, the leak isn't there anymore. The last 6 months, quit working because I had to hammer, I had to finish. Brady was you're not going to be a senior at Moody and be able to quit on this one, And God provided month to month for a check to pay that house payment. And then I worked every other little job I could around to make things happen and so on. God continued to provide. And then, so we were like, well, God's going to do great things with us, right? He didn't invest all this in me just to, go home, right? So it was like Italy. And it was an article that I read, and Italy still to this day, I pray for Italy because I didn't go, But I read this article, and God put Italy on my heart, and still love those people. And I think of things like this, and y'all can. This is where, because I'm gonna want feedback eventually. Okay, here. I think of things like, if you think about the demonic world and the deception that has been there for so long, the deception in the church that has been there for so long, in their geographic areas and things like that, you understand the heaviness. And because I see in my mind, I saw the United States going that way, the American church, we're headed down that same path, kind of a mentality, of just, in terms of of our teachings here, the mixing problems and so on, that we just keep drawing further and further away from God as the living body of Christ, So those things were challenged, and 2 weeks before, we were headed to a training that was going to start our path towards Italy through a mission agency. And 2 weeks before that, I picked up this back injury that I've had ever since. Did a lift, twist, pull is kind of what they call it, and probably done it for 15 years. I'd been at Central Freight Line, so I'd done it plenty of times. Now, the pallet that I was pulling on was excessively ignorant of me to be doing, and the situation I put myself in. But I ended up getting injured, and the doctor wrote on my chart right then, he said, if you leave town, all responsibilities will be yours. So we had a choice. It was like, does God want us to go to that training, or do we need to stay in this safety net? We chose the safety net. We chose, hey, this is a workman's comp injury. We're going to have them cover it, that sort of thing. Well, and then we moved to Fort Worth, and it took about 3 or 4 years to get it done. And so Brandy and the family had to spend time with me being in La La Land on lots of drugs and different things like that, just kind of like shifted things. But finally, God sent a guy, a crazy man in Burleson, to me, who, God uses those crazy ones, right? And he stood on my back, and then he got behind me while I was laying there all calm and trusting him. I'm trying to get my computer on again, I'm sorry. And he put a towel under my neck and yanked it. And it adjusted my lower back to the point that then it started healing. It started a healing process that needed to start. So God used all that time to get me here to where that now I am a teacher at Temple Christian, and I got sport back because I'm coaching and so on, but it's with a real purpose of trying to be able to use that activity as a tool. So when I do my sports, I coach to win and do things like that because that's what you do. You do your best. And actually, you coach towards excellence and you learn different things like that. You're coaching towards excellence. But the deal was to use it as a tool and use it as ministry. And last summer, I got to go on my first mission trip doing basketball, and it was great and so on. But life kept stirring, and then you guys showed up here. Or actually, we started attending when it was over off of 360 for a little while. And God has used for his glory to, like I said earlier, do a paradigm shift for me. Because this, as I pointed out earlier, I was still doing this. I'm still working to try to get my soul right. And as I'm writing theology papers at Moody Bible, I'm in conflict. I mean, every professor, I just have to go to him. I'm like, look, I know you hear this all the time, but I'm working. I'm trying to get through this, but I can't because I always just saw the incongruency, the inconsistency of trying to put together a systematic theology because I was living a works-driven faith. And I couldn't explain. I couldn't explain things. I could read the explanation, but it wasn't in my spirit. It wasn't a spirit of wisdom from God. It was man's wisdom. And I'd be like, it doesn't work. That doesn't fit. Because I know what it says over here. You know what I mean? So in that time while we were in Chicago, we went to a Nazarene church, not necessarily because we were like going, well, salvation, then you can be lost or something like that. But it was just, we needed to go there. I was like, we need to explore over here because these people are believers too, but they're different. You know what I mean? But it's safe in my head. It's kind of what we did. And the pastor was there and was great for me as a mentor. And I know I'm going long here, but I'm trying to put the pieces together, so I hope you can stay with me. So this whole salvation thing of saved by grace, never going to lose it, totally bought in, okay? But then, lose your salvation if you're not really living for Christ. The classic battle, right? The classic tension. So when I'm in class, I'm always like, here we go, because tension is a classic within worldview. I see in God's economy, there's a constant tension between things, okay? He's constantly showing us his love, but in his love, he's also just. And he puts them and he interlocks them together. And he works through his love, his justice is done, okay? So I see this tension. I see this tension of, hey, okay, there's salvation, and then there's this sanctification that I realized I'd been working on since 4 years old, but I kept confusing it with salvation because it was like, I would find something, even the greatness, one of those drops that I talked about of God's grace, and you're just like, wow, that must be the fullness of God. Yay. No, it's just one of the drops. It's one of the drops of his greatness, And he blows us away, and you're like, how could he get any better, And you realize, he is so much more, right? Been down those roads. So theology and things are all trying to fight and resist or whatever, and aha moment, okay? This room is turned, and there's a big wall right here, okay? Y'all remember those days if you were here or whatever? And Mike's working on these circles, and I'm just sitting there, I'm racking my brain, I'm going, I see it, like half the time I am here anyway, I'm going, I'm just going to have to sit on this for a little while and let it mull. And like the end of one of the periods, it just all of a sudden, Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. All of a sudden I realized this is what's supposed to be happening. It was like submit here and then it works this way. What? Paradigm shift. Talk about a paradigm shift. Now I'm going back through all my theology. I'm like, oh, wait, you mean I don't go straight to heaven maybe? Oh, but okay, all right. I'm going to have to work on that one then, because I wrote my papers, defying that, people used to think this, kind of a thing. So as I try to teach today, you're going to see that mumbling and jumbling. If you think I'm mumbling and jumbling right now, understand that paradigm shift has made a change in me that has just been like, it's been there, but I didn't know it was going there. It was those times when my soul was speaking to the Spirit, and I wanted to just go, but this body was going, no, don't do that. And I wasn't afraid to be embarrassed. It was just, I don't know what it was. There was still just, I'm not gonna unleash. I'm not gonna let you go, Lord. I'm not gonna let you work through me that direction. Because what I was doing is I understood love God. Everything I was doing was because I loved God. I didn't understand the tension to that loving God. I didn't understand the directional flow that should have been happening with loving God. That spirit that was within me, he needed to be speaking to my soul and changing my attitude. Instead of my body beating that soul down all the time, beating that desire down all the time, I needed to unleash and instead let the Spirit do the changing in the soul. I was still working. I was working out my salvation because I knew I was saved, but I was still working. I was working hard, but I was working against God's stream. I had a kid explain it to me this year that I thought did really well for my background in this, because I teach this stuff now. And he was like, I no longer feel like I'm being fake to God. I was like, that's an interesting insight, because I have him kind of right at the end of the year. He's like, I no longer have to feel like I'm being fake. I know that I don't really want, there's this want thing that has to die a lot of the time. Okay, I'm giving away some of the later stuff or whatever, but one of my symbols is this, and I picked it up in here, okay, and it means not my will, but God's will, okay? So, and you'll understand why I do this in my class. In my class, I keep it short and sweet. Boom, right? I have to be commercial oriented. I'm being long and drawn out. I hope I'm not killing you, okay? I'm being who I love to be, not what I have to be, okay? If you're with me, okay? But I tell them, when you see the cross, I want you to think, not my will, but your will. Boom, 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 all the time now. From now on, cross, not my will, your will. Because we are that living sacrifice. We are that living killing now. And so living in a living killing way, we go to the cross every time. I said, how do you wake up in the morning? I said, one of the ways I want you to wake up in the morning is I want you to think, not today, not my will, but your will, Lord. I said, that's the growth. That's how you start every day, you find things like that. So that's where I'm teaching towards. So I'm using this avenue now called worldview. So I kind of have to explain what worldview is, okay? But I'm going to take a quick drink before I do that. Has anybody been around here heard the term worldview? Simply, it's the presuppositions of and for the time that we live in. It's the presuppositions that we use of and for the time that we are living in. In other words, in simple words, they're the good ideas that have good consequences or the bad ideas that have bad consequences that we have of and for the world, Okay? So we see the ofness of the world is what's really going on, what is the truth of the world, and then how am I going to use that truth for the world? Like, how am I going to live in that truth then? And it's easier really kind of to think of it in biblical or Christian worldview, because then we can go to Scripture and say, this is what of the world looks like. It's the truth, okay? So now, because of the truth, the ofness of this world, now how am I going to live for it in this world, right? Just to try to help that. So it's the ideas or presuppositions. In other words, they're ideas that you've established because you've done study or you have a reason or you experienced something. Now we're talking believer, non-believer have worldviews. We all have worldviews, okay? We all have some reason for living the life the way we do it, okay? Whether it's totally out of reaction or taking action or anything like that. But it's presuppositions. Biblical worldview seeks to answer these questions. First is, the first one I teach, and this isn't a textbook thing, so I'm kind of running with it from here, kind of a thing, is how do I live the great commandment? Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind. In other words, with everything that you are, how do I do that? That's the question I've got to ask myself and be able to get the right answer, because if I get that right answer, the ofness is taken care of, okay? So that then I can move on to for the world, how am I going to live it out? Now, some of this is based in my inductive Bible study, right? We're going to ask what it says, we're going to see what it means, and then we're going to apply it, okay? And what we want to be able to get to is get that meaning and be able to start that application from God's Word. But that's all biblical worldview. We're all going to say, let's get to Scripture, let's see what it says, let's see what it means, and then determine how does that work in my time? Because worldview is what is that truth and what does it mean, and then what does it mean in our time? Okay? And we'll talk about what that time looks like, because time is a broad subject, and that's where I get hung up a lot, is I just kind of take all this truth and I ball it all up into one, kind of like salvation, okay? And then working out our faith, working out my salvation, and I ball it all up into the same salvation. I go flush it down the commode, say, I got it, right? And then I realize as it gets pulled apart here, I'm like, oh my goodness, there's two things here, There's two. There's an inheritance of the kingdom that was being all balled up into this salvation thing, that no, there's a reason it's called two different things, So the third one is, how do I glorify God? Okay, so if I'm going to love God with everything that I am, I need to fulfill my purpose, okay? And with development theologically, okay, I'm going to move the kids towards my purpose is glorify God. I need to glorify Him in everything that I do. And we'll go through those passages and we'll see it, and we'll see that, purpose lies in glorify God. And then, how will I love as God has revealed? Is my third, and it's pulling away just a little bit, okay? Because we really have to see, because if I talk to a kid about love, what they're thinking. They're teenagers. That's what they think love is, So we really have to paint the picture of what does God's love look like, okay? And I get to bring in things like, okay, so what we want to do is we want to look at the character of God and His attributes, and then be able to see what His love looks like with those attributes. And I'm moving in and out of my notes here, but that's how I make a distinction for them, because one of their current issues is Islam and Christianity. What's the difference? We're both reading from a book, you know what I mean? But one is taking it blindly from that book, saying there is no other, if He said it, that makes it good, But what we know with God is that His character and His goodness and His word, they're all in cohesion. They're all together. It's all going the same direction. It's all oneness, okay? There's a unity within the message that He has. He's not saying, love one another and blah, 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 but then kill babies, kind of a thing. Or kill the infidel or something like that, to be more exact in that sense. So I propose it in like this. In Luke 10, the man says, who is my neighbor? And he's trying to justify himself, right? He says, well, then who is my neighbor? Okay. But that's because his heart was in the wrong place, right? If we put our heart in the right place, well, that's one of the best questions we can be asking, right? Well, who's my neighbor? You my neighbor? Okay. Then I need to be the love of God to you because you're my neighbor. Oh, my neighbor here? Yeah. Right? So one of the guiding questions is, who's your neighbor? You need to be asking that. We need to be asking that with that changed heart, because the reality of physical and non-physical is essential to our worldview. Okay? We can categorize it in three. We can call it naturalism, which is we're physical only, or we can call it transcendental, which it's only spiritual, or we have somewhere in the middle. Okay? And so we usually classify it as theistic worldview. So there's some kind of God or some kind of revealer, there's some kind of revelation that we're able to use. And for us, that is God and His Word. Okay? So those three worldviews, I wasn't really planning on talking to you about those, so I'm going to keep moving. Everyone has a worldview, even for non-believers. They have something that is a ofness of this world. Either it's, we could call it consumerism. We could call it selfishness. Whatever. There's a of that's going to drive what we view for this world and what we do. Okay? Usually it's going to be physically based, or it's going to be spirit based. Okay? A woman that I love dearly is one of the, and I'm just going to talk categorically here, okay? She's one of the best transcendentalists I know, okay? But what she does is she goes past, she's like, you don't need that book to be able to know it, okay? And, but I'm telling you, you want to talk about 95% nailing that spirit world down, she's got it. She says she sees it. I don't doubt that she doesn't, So I'm like, Lord, her soul, because that's where we have to go with any of it, right? Anyway, is Lord, okay? Whether she believes your word is true or not isn't, the criteria here, And that's one of those things where I've learned what's really bothered me in my walk, my young walk and so on of sanctification, is I saw all the tension and I thought it was warring. And I didn't realize really what it was is they were cords holding together God's truth, Because as I said, if we get to 1 Corinthians, which I'm wondering if we're going to get there or not, that's where you get hands and ears and noses, and we're all parts, right? But that's kind of referring to the church. But I grew up with all that tension. I was like, why are these Baptists hating those people over there? And they're, you know what I mean? And like, we're not getting along, and it didn't make any sense, and I'm kind of a peaceable guy. I kind of like to get along with people, And I saw people kind of, being, they were too demanding, I thought. In fact, frankly, as a young kid, I thought Paul was a little too demanding, Then I realized he was not speaking for himself, He's speaking for the truth, and it was warranted and pretty much guaranteed. But as a kid, I was like, boy, that Paul, he's a pretty cocky guy, Well, yeah. Okay, he needed to be that for those people, right, that he spoke to. And for us, because it helps us see the truth. And that's what I can't wait to. I hope I get to the 1 Corinthians, but I'll tell you I'm scared to death of the 1 Corinthians, okay? If I'm rambling. All right? So a couple examples of what this worldview looks like. You can look at it as like a tree, okay? And so I'll draw a tree. And we'll talk about roots, okay? Because we need to get our ofness straight, okay? And so when we're talking about worldview, we have a couple of foundational things that we need to get right, like our theology, right? Because really, for everyone, the ultimate question, I kind of went over some ultimate questions for the believer, okay? The ultimate question for everyone is there a God? Because once you answer that question, now you're headed down the path. Okay? You've chosen which tree you're growing. Once you answer the question, is there a God? Now you've established the structure for your ofness of this world. How does this world operate? So that when I get to biology and I start asking the question of how did I get here? Where did all this stuff come from? You know, if you say God, alien, super creature, little g gods, okay, well, that's where you go for how did we get here? If you say, no, absolutely no God, then now you have to find accident, chance, okay? I mean, either one, you know, kind of leaves us on the edge of the table if without faith, you know, we're all just kind of like, well, accident or chance or faith? Which one do we want? Which cliff do we want to jump off of, you know? If you're just looking at it, especially from a naturalistic point of view, okay? But we have theology, and we have philosophy, so like the love of knowledge and how we can know things, and ethics or something like that, okay? And as we grow our tree, then we start to ask questions. So how can I know what I know, okay, is what we're asking at the root questions, you know? Why am I here? Those sorts of things. And these kids need to get that stuff straight. I don't know if you're still asking that question or not, you know? I know sometimes when life throws us that curveball and everything comes crashing down, those are the questions I still start asking. Why am I here? You know, what is this for, right? Okay. And then we can move into things like biology. Okay. And then as this truth of answering that question, as you get your theology straight, and as you get, well, how can I know then? Down, okay? Well then, how should I behave? Once I get those roots down, how should I behave? How can I know what I know and know what's true? And then, you know, who is God? And get those kinds of things straight. It starts working out into, well then, it affects my sciences, or how did I get here, or so on. And it works into psychology, you know? What is my nature? To where then it works into my, like, well, what is the value of history? And you know, you get, and this is so foreign from me, but I love these people that do it, or whatever, that are apologetic, you know, and they can absolutely prove that the cross happened and, you know, all that stuff. I'm just not a detail-oriented person. I'll get bored. I'm just like, ugh. You know, I'm glad you can prove it. I mean, you know, it's kind of that accepted by faith, too young kind of a thing, and what I was guilty of a lot as a young person, you know. But yeah, I mean, it's a very provable event. So many eyewitnesses and the inerrancy of Scripture and all those proofs and things like that. So you can see how, and there's a few other studies or whatever, but you can see how a tree kind of illustrates what is our worldview. Then we need to get these roots right, okay? Another word is putting on a pair of glasses. You know, you can put on glasses that help you see, or rose-colored glasses, or whatever. So your worldview is what is the ofness that you're going to put on, so that now you look at things like, you kind of answer the theology question, but you're going to answer questions of how can I know something is true or not. If you say no God, okay, well then you're going to have to really look for some formulas, some regularities, or maybe you just give up, because I guarantee you, I'd be, the name slips me, narcissistic? Not narcissistic. I'd be a nihilist. If I didn't have God, I'd be like, this is worthless. I just need to end it now. You know what I mean? I see all this pain. I see all this suffering. If there's no point, you know, to heck with like trying to live for money or something like that. Because I'm past that. You know what I mean? I'd be a nihilist, a fatalist, you know, because it's over. Why not end it now? I mean, but that's my heart, you know, that's within who I am, or whatever. Come on, baby. All right. So it's like a pair of glasses, or what's even better for Christian worldview is I like to talk about a map. Okay? Your worldview is like your map, because then you're going to kind of realize, hey, I'm supposed to be over here, but I know I'm over here, so I need to get a lay of the land, okay, and find out, why did God make me, you know? And I need to know, I need to be able to know his truth so that then I know how to behave. Oh, so I need to behave this way. My will needs to submit to him, you know? And this is the unlocking. I'm telling you, this is the paradigm, but I'm having to rework everything, because it was out of whack, okay? But now I'm going to go, okay, I know how to behave because of what God's word tells me. They call it deontological. In other words, there's some kind of purpose, or there's a script, or there's a way I should behave, and I need to emulate it to be good, okay? But along with that comes spiritual wisdom that then allows me to be able to live out what I'm supposed to live. But it gives me the road or the path of where I should be headed. So that's what worldview is trying to do, and what I'm trying to do with these kids. So you understand how getting this straight now like makes life make a whole lot more sense in the classroom, right? Sorry, the camera has to keep recognizing me. Like I said, I don't know if you're here, but I tried to print it earlier and it didn't work. Me and technology fighting each other. Okay. So, those are some examples I use, but then we need to understand that God's truth works itself out in our time in different ways. In 1930, we were in what they call the Great Depression, right? For the kids, I refer to what we are in now as the Great Depletion. In other words, there's plenty of food, but it's all depleted, right? We know well the lack of value that it has. We're just, so much, we're looking for now, well, I want food that, has value. I'm not just looking for food because there's plenty of that laying around, right? So that affects the way we view our world. That affects the way I look at my day, because I'm no longer needing to work to make sure that mom and daddy can feed us tonight. I mean, I hear the stories, and and it's what I miss, I miss my grandmother, because there's the story of 3 biscuits and all the kids, and she breaks hers in half and gives it to her brothers and because they're crying. Whew, what? She's hungry too. And uncles who were old enough to work and get married, and they would go buy a pound of bologna. And y'all may know this, you may have lived this. I'm just saying, it's foreign to me. So it changes who I am. An uncle who, after work every day, buys a pound of bologna and a loaf of bread to take it to his 4 other brothers. But he doesn't buy 5 pounds of bologna and 5 loaves of bread because he knows they'll eat it all in one day. So he has to every day do that, And now I look at them going, I don't see that unless they tell me. You know what I'm saying? I don't know that they've experienced that. What are these kids? So our experiences change, right? Through time, okay? And God's truth works it out. Then it works out and it looks different. And I was very concerned about the differences that I saw in the faith, And I was like, that can't be. We can't be that different in these things. A young question that I had was, why are there all these Catholic charities, but I don't see any Baptist charities around? They're feeding the poor and they're in the streets, and I see that in Scripture, but I don't see us, the meanest people, doing that, So those were some struggles that I had, because I saw it, the faith working itself out in different people in different ways, and the fact that we weren't all together really caused a lot of confusion for me, And it still does. I'm not trying to say that's all gone, but I understand better now how it's, because this right here, okay, it's my will, and then in my unique abilities and traits of my body and who I am and the way God created me and so on, it works itself out. And that's why I have this passion for sports ministry, but then I'll talk to other coaches and then the 90% of the rest of the world, and they're like, that's good, man. And I'm like, wow, yeah, isn't that cool, you know? And I felt like the idiot, right? And I was like, oh, that's what a passion is. A passion is when you're on fire for it, but nobody else is. You're like, oh, that's a God gift. God made me to do this then. I finally found it, right? So I try to tell the kids, my quote to them is, never tell a young person something is impossible. Because God may have been waiting hundreds of years for someone just ignorant enough of the impossible to do that very thing. I loved it. I read that. I was like, boom, that's my heart passion. That's what I want kids to know. Yeah, you know, my balanced side is always like, don't tell kids anything's impossible. But, you know, get beside them, shape them a little bit, you know. But let that dream run, you know, because I'm a thrower. I found that also once I studied enough. I finally found my term of what I like to do is throw people. I like to go, ooh, what are your dreams? And then go, look at that. Look at where that could go. Wow, that's cool. That lights me up. But we have a responsibility. I'm trying to draw this back. I hope I'm connecting. The teacher side of me is going nuts. Understanding, we need to understand our times. First Chronicles 13:32, 12:32, excuse me. You see the sons of Issachar, and they understood the times. Okay? So we need to understand our time. Take these truths that are for us. If you're talking to your children, grandchildren, there is a responsibility. There's the power of the word, which I was struggling with, like I said, in this lesson, you know. Hey, Mark, it's not about you. Just get up there and let the power of the word work, and, you know, try to be a vessel, okay? In the same sense, we need to work. We need to shape a little bit. We need to understand the time and realize, hey, I've got this kid's attention for 5 seconds, right? And then it's gonna go around in the world or whatever, and then boom, I'm gonna get him again over here, okay? Because I'll say, go out to the football field, and then they're like, you know, they go off. They're off into whatever they would do on the football field or something like that. I'm gonna lose them. I'm gonna lose them fast. So I try to get my stuff down to these. That's why I'm gonna be asking for these probably at the end, okay? Is I need those little phrases. A phrase in your life that just like went, hey. It was maybe an aha moment or something like that. And I'll share a few of them as I kind of push through here. And I'll keep pushing. Sorry. All right. But I know y'all can handle it. So anyway, yeah, here we go. So biblical worldview, I kind of addressed this, but theology, philosophy, ethics, psychology, biology, economics, history, because good ideas have good consequences. That's when I found that, and I thought, I need to hold on to that one, you know? Kind of like in Corinthians, bad company corrupts good character, right? You know, it's a classic, right? Yeah. But good ideas, okay, presuppositions, ofness of this world, okay, if we get those ideas right in these kids' heads, if we get those ideas right, this is an idea, okay? It's worked out from truth, okay? But it's not like spelled out, okay? It's shown. And now that it's there, you know, I'm like going through 1 Corinthians, like, how did I miss it, you know? How did I miss that there's these people that are still going to work for their inheritance, and then we've got these people that aren't going to, and they're going to only come through by fire? I don't know. Well, I'll tell you what I was doing in my theological papers. I was just like going, this is what they said, because I could not own it, you know? This is what so-and-so said. What I would do is I'd say, this side is saying this side, and this side is saying this, and then I'd leave it at that. I'd never write a conclusion. I passed. I don't know if that's good or bad, but I at least acknowledged that I understood both sides of the, and then I understood that then there's usually three. And if there aren't three disagreements, there's five. And if there's not five, there's seven. Okay? And then, how it gets theologically. It's just like they all, but there's a little tweak here. Yep, there is. So our kids, I try to establish these nuggets or these pearls of wisdom due to their attention span and trying to establish good ideas like this. And this is where I'm going to want your help, okay? Here's another one. Let's see. Right? Anybody know? In, not of, right? So, you want to talk about the ultimate tension? We are in this world, but we're not of this world. It holds us in tension of, okay, there is a higher priority, and it's the non-physical, okay? The non-physical is what I really need to be taken care of, because who do I need to be afraid of? The one that can destroy my soul, right? So the non-physical is the high priority, and the non-physical is both the soul and the spirit, okay? They need to keep that relationship alive. Their character needs to be driving what they do, not what they do trying to make their character better. That's what I did for, Lord help, 41 years, I understood we weren't saved by works, right? But it's the little things, right? It's the 2%. Every good lie has just, enough truth, right? In it. Just a fancy lie, the better ones, right? Get my vision back. Left my glasses. So, in, not of the world, I showed you the cross. This is a beautiful one, I think, okay? This answers a lot of questions for me. Redemption is greater than creation. Because every kid's going to ask, if God's so good, why evil, right? Because it's in those difficult questions like that they tell me, Francis Schaeffer, whatever, they're all like, those difficult questions, the simpler the answer, as far as how God loves us. But here it is. Here's the beauty of it, okay? What happens at creation? First day, it's good. Second day, good. Third, good. Fourth, good. 5, good. 6, very good, right? So creation is good, all right? But evil is allowed, and in God's economy, in this choice and everything that He has allowed, okay, in this physical realm, our chance to prove ourselves in the non-physical realm. Are we on the same page? I'm not heresy here, right? Because it's so foreign to me. I'm talking 41 years of I'm trying to kick against, right? His redemption, His buying back of us, isn't it such a more beautiful picture? It's just such a beautiful picture, the fact that even He gave us this, He gives us choice. He gave us choice at the start, and then now we have choice now. Will we choose Him? He'll avail Himself to us, and then, we either choose to live for Him or we don't. Can we, we're going to beg for mercy, but can we beg for mercy, really? Because, we know. We know a lot. We don't know it all. We're not fullness knowing, but we sure know a lot. And boy, isn't the picture beautiful of what Jesus does for us? He makes a way. He did something really good over here, okay? And it got corrupted. But man, redemption is even a more beautiful picture of that creation. And that helps. That doesn't it's not comprehensive with evil, but it gets us going in the right direction of seeing God and His character for who He is, because we're doing a year in a in an hour here or so, right? The better we see God for who he is. I think I got this in here. The better we see God for who he is, the better we see us for who we are. The more I see God, as he reveals more of himself to me, I go, oh, Lord help. I love Lord help because I didn't know Lord help. I mean, I fell on my knees and I've been face down and because I've been in the presence of the Lord, the Spirit. But now I'm like, hey, you want to be in the right place? Lord help. Simplistically, isn't it the right place? Isn't that the solution to most all of our problems? Lord help. You know what I mean? This could look like the greatest thing in the world, but Lord help. Before I take that step, Lord help, because I am a sheep. That means I'm dumb, I'm ignorant, and I need you to guide me. Lord help me. Lord help me. What a beautiful thing, right? Lord help. The better I see God for who he is, the better I see me for who I am. Because, and so then we look at the universe, and I had Louis Giglio does this great video on how big our universe is, because our telescopes are getting better, right? So they just keep seeing further and further and further, right? And then he ends up with this cross-looking constellation thing or whatever, But what he's really trying to point out to us is if that universe is about me, and if you watch the video, you realize the Earth is a little speck of dust on one of these pictures, And then we're not even the center of our Milky Way, right? We are minute and insignificant, if that's what it's about. But the universe isn't about us. The universe is about him. And if the universe and its size, and this helps their mind go, okay, well, that's an explanation, I don't have it up here anymore, for the sciences, of why is this universe, if the earth is the only inhabited and blah, 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 well, then this universe might be about the right size for a God who is as grand as he is. And who knows what he has planned for this huge, for the hugeness of it that it is, and so on. So, just sharing truths with you, sharing nuggets, because I'm going to want a couple back, okay? Here's another one, illustration, okay? God's plan. A classic one that I ask in the environment I was in, what's God's plan for my life? Right? I say that sarcastically. That's not to take it lightly. Take it very seriously. Okay? But what are we hearing in that? What is if you talk to your kids or grandkids about this and you talk about, I'm going to write it, okay? So I'm going to write it fast though. I just addressed this. What are many of them picking out of that question? Because we're asking questions in this class. My life. Whose life? My life. God's plan, because it's a really good question to ask, right? But we're twisted and we're deceived. And we don't see things right. And we think, I struggle enough with it being about me, right? Oh, my back hurt. Why do I have to have this back hurt, right? You know what I mean? Lord, take this back hurt. It's my life. No, it's this. It's God's plan. So what our job to do is, if we get our worldview straight and realize that it's not about me, okay? It's about his plan. Now it's like, okay, I need to find out what God's plan is so then I can get my life right after it. Make sense? But you've got to ask this question, and then you have to break it down. Because more than likely, the majority of us, we're sitting there going, hey, you're pursuing God. Good. Yeah, that's a good question. No, they're worried about my life. Of course, and, I worry about my life too. My own struggles, right? I want to hold on to it. But we get hit almost weekly, right? Like, oh, you got to, right? And it's good. So we need it. except that it makes us accountable. Oof. So life is about glorifying God. Ultimately, when we drive down to purpose, I'm trying to look for one word, because that's what they're going to hold on to. When life hits you and it gets hard or whatever, I need you to have these little seeds that can at least get you through, and remember, it's about glorify Him. Not about me, it's about glorify Him kind of stuff. So that's one more. Another one, God is concerned with non-physical and physical. We talk about that so much in here that I feel like we kind of grasp it, but especially the young people we're speaking to and so on, the reality of the kingdom is not at hand. Unless you're teaching it, and I hope, I'm sure you are, and that we're revealing in here. But for the kids that I'm running across, the reality of the kingdom is, I still struggle. I'm still laying down my roots. I kind of understand Jesus said it started, but it's not complete. So we're in the middle. We're doing something. It's being worked up, right? So it's in a process. We're still in, and trying to figure that out. And I know some of the theologies and bringing it to earth and, those sorts of things. But kingdom living, and then we can go back to Matthew 7, 5 through 7, and so on, things like that. We can really get the idea of what's the economy, which is another one of the studies, okay? How am I going to manage the resources I've been given? Stewardship, 1 Corinthians, right? How am I going to be a good steward of what I've been given so that I can live for God? And take care of that non-physical that's going to happen after, because it is a reality, and it's going to be a kingdom, and we want to be a part of it, and we want that inheritance and not have to be purified by fire and not see our works get burned up, but that our works would be things like gold that can stand the heat. But we've got to at least see the physical, non-physical. I love the beauty of the three-part being. And they know well, spirit goes back to spirit, soul's what you are. We know, and we all know what happens to the body, right? And what it allows us to do is, if we get this worldview thinking, this system of being able to figure out the fourness of this world and get those ideas right, and then be able to get our ideas right about our ofness and then how are we going to live in this world. It helps them to get to a level of, in teaching, we want higher learning or whatever, and they can start making some comparison and contrast. Okay? And this is like junior level stuff or whatever, but we want them to be able to, like I said, look at Islam and go, they're reading the Quran and it's telling them to do this, and that's why they're doing it. And then I'm reading the Bible and it's telling me to do it, so I'm doing it. What makes me different? And to be able to then get into the deeper things of understanding the consistency and the character of God and the support and so on, those kinds of things, And establishing those things, especially for certain individuals, is really important. I've got one son that needs that. He needs that kind of thinking to help him put the world together. So he has a good sound ofness and forness in this world, And to this day, we still just have long, drawn-out conversations trying to get all the mind stuff straight, because he was made to ask questions. And in fact, in third grade, his teacher at the end of the year, I think out of spite, gave him this book that was like the book of the question of why, and it was about this thick, no joke. Gave it to a third grader. Like I said, I think she was doing it out of meanness, but anyway, we laughed, because he was always like, why? So anyway, good book. I'm almost done, I think. Or we can open God's Word too, because I really feel like that we need to do that. But anyway, time is spent in application of truth. because we need to know our times. Like I said, we need to know what God's word says. We need to know what it means. But then as we know what it means, we need to get it into our time so that then we can understand it, so that how does it work with my will and with my body in my time. Do you understand those three dynamics that are going on? Okay. There's my will. Okay. There is my attitude, my willingness, my heart. Okay. My body. Is my mind really, are you an apologetic kind of mind person, or are you, I'm more of the less details. Don't blow me away with details. I can listen to details in class and so on, but then when it gets up here to teaching it and stuff, I just kind of like, I go past them and then realize, man, I didn't fill in all the blanks here, but the type of person that you are, the type of personality that you are, the time that you live in, those all affect what that truth will look like. It's not a different truth, like relativists would just look around and go, so a relativist is going to say it's relative to the situation, right? That determines whether something is right or wrong, okay? But we have to be able to help them understand that, no, there's still a truth here that's guiding, and so, especially theologically, when we start talking about eras like dispensations and so on. So we're trying to establish that. And You Lost Me, a book one of the Barna guys puts out, is trying to help. I use books like Barna and those guys to help me identify the culture, because my kids are finally old enough. I don't know what they're listening to. I don't know what the latest artist is singing, you know what I mean? And that sort of thing. That helped when I had kids kind of in that range. I've got one there, but he's not real pop culture oriented, He has his little niche and that's about it, You don't know. But anyway, so I try to use some of these texts and they're saying, here's what our kids, our grandkids are facing, okay? I'm going to have to read it because I know what it says, but here we go. Looks at today's culture and identifies how uniquely compacted the social technological change is occurring and how that affects our kids in their view of reality. In other words, society and technology are changing so fast, okay, because that affects their worldview. I mean, we are certainly in the age of, I think we were doing the math. I don't want to get into too many details about school. 7th grade, there is an iPad mentality now. In other words, those kids, when they were babies, had iPads. Okay? So their brain developed and everything else using an iPad. So you want to talk about being able to hold their attention? What do you have to have? I mean, you don't have to, but I mean, that's where they're at. Okay? So if we're going to get to them, effectively, this is not in the, the power of God's word is amazing, right? And God's economy can turn things upside down so fast. But when I'm trying to ask the question, okay, how am I going to reach these kids? How am I going to put something out there? And I'm not trying to bait them. I'm trying to talk their language, so that they can hear my words, so that they don't confuse my with God's plan kind of stuff in a simple question. Right? We need to be able to connect. We need to be able to have certain ways, and things are changing so fast. That's the question to answer. Now, all I can say right now is that's what I'm looking for. You know what I mean? I'm studying. That's what I'm looking for is how can I connect with these kids? How can I make sure? And there's the hammer it away kind of things. Like I say, that's why I love being a coach, is because it's a great relationship build, because you have to spend time with each other, and if they're going to have any success, they have to work hard, and I have to work hard. And when we start doing things like that, good things start to happen. You start to build relationship. But our kids, it's going fast, and we need to see how can we communicate truth to this society, to these kids, that things are going so fast. What is the line, that line of truth that just holds true? And how can I get that? Because that's the message. Because I'm reflecting, okay? It was so much on how things were done. I thought this is how church was done. I thought this is how Christian was done, that drove a lot of my faith, And it was all done out of love. And I think that some of those works hopefully do qualify, because they were done out of love. They didn't have fullness, but we aren't required to have fullness to be able for it to qualify, right? Because there's a lot of people that's how we can have people we can have arms and hands over here that are different than feet. But I really think that, we're still working. We don't have to know everything. Right? Exactly. So, working on that. Mine, the one and I hear it in here all the time. Okay? I'm going to talk about us for a second. Ours, the church. Scripture tells us plainly, Christ loves the church. And I don't think there's a word of spite said in here towards the church. I think we all have a heart for the church. The body of Christ. We all want to be the bride. And we see truths today about how to behave in the church. Church is diverse in the way it behaves and how it acts. And I'm like, are we being hands and feet, or are we being totally separate from each other? And that's what you see in 1 Corinthians. If we don't, I just really don't feel like I could drag y'all on much longer. I know y'all are so much better than this. Y'all can handle 3 hours or whatever. But our heart breaks for the church. How can we be the salt and light that we need to be in the body of Christ? And, if we look at 1 Corinthians, we see some of the attitudes and truths, and to me, they're worldview statements that it's going to take for us to reach the church, to be the church, because I just do feel this overwhelming sickness within me that I am sick because I am the church. And as long as I'm alive, I don't want to settle for that. I know we kind of know how the end is going to happen. We're going to fall asleep. But, you hear, why won't Borchert talk so much? He seems to have a real grasp of the lukewarm church, and so on. Go ahead. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Which ones in time? They're all going still kind of in a way, right? But we definitely have signs of that lukewarm church. And I don't want it. Lord help. Right? Lord help. So, last part I want to wrap up with here is we want to see truth work out in the church today. So many times in my study, God reveals the truth in tension. Things like promises and conditions. I was like, wow, that's awesome. Promise and condition, that's a beautiful one. That's when at the end of the year, they have a final exam, and like 50% of it are all these little nuggets, okay? And that's one of them, man. If we don't connect that promises have conditions, okay, then we run rampant with grace, right? We just run rampant with it. And grace, like, the pixie dust or something like that. Grace. And that's even in love, and Lord, I love you. I want to accept you as Lord of my life. Attitude, okay? But still, I'm just like, grace. Running around grace and everything, And it is amazing grace. I haven't come up with the word to describe what it isn't grace yet, I have to say. Because it's not careless grace. It's not misused grace. It's well-earned, don't trample the blood of Christ grace. Right? I know the phrases, but yeah, I don't know the exact. But yes, it's a tension. And God's I see this tension, and I like I say, it's one of those things where I haven't read it yet, but I know when I read it, it'll go, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Maybe they're putting it in better words, and that the PhD guy gonna figure it out or whatever. But and you look. I mean, you have your other people, other religions, whatever, have that. You have yin and yang, you have black and white, you have good, evil, right? They see there's a tension going on here, right? They realize the tension of in, not of, at some level. You have to have, in order to have good, you have to have evil, which is a fallacy. But anyway, we're not going there.
I got to say something.
Go. Uh-huh.
Carl being a musician, I guarantee he knows tension, because in order for a song to not become monotonous and lull you to sleep, you have to create tension within the song for it to continue to sound exciting. Meaning they put bridges, they put different things, and it's all in the way the song is written to keep the listener engaged. And it's tension that's the terminology that they use. Create tension.
In the song.
In the song. Yeah. I guess I'm watching too many YouTube.
Well, as a coach, I'm talking tension all the time, right? Especially as a track coach. That's why I love track, is because there's plenty of times where you're putting things in tension so that then you can use those laws of thermodynamics of for every action there's a equal and opposite reaction. So if you want to go that way, then swing that way, and now you're going to go further that way. You know what I mean? You're going to get mechanical movements and so on. So tension is a thread that's holding things together, and God uses it. And like I say, the one thing that just outdoes it is that one thing, His love. His love just outdoes it all. And it creates the ultimate, yes.
That's why we can put that on the board.
Tension keeps your attention. All right? Because I'm taking a picture. I'll get yes, I always try to get a symbol. Keeps you or your attention. Your attention. We need tension, because otherwise it's this. Hey, I'm glad y'all are here. Right? We need tension. It helps, at least. I say the word need, and then I critically think through it and then say, oh, we don't need it, but it helps. Okay. The class gets to God. I'll tell you, the 1 Corinthians, I wanted to open up God's word just because it's like, got to open up God's word. Got to do it. Got to do it. This isn't Mark's word, okay? I hope that you understand in the sharing, it's the walk, it's the work, it's the light that I feel like He's trying to shine through my life. And I appreciate the opportunity to try to just share it. I want to get some reflections back, Is there anyone that maybe has that another nugget or something that you just while you were talking this or something like that? I'd really like that feedback, at least first or whatever. But if it's not there, I'm perfectly content with it, because trust me. Yeah, go ahead.
Something that you said earlier reminded me of something that Mike had said years ago that's always stuck is that if we're leading to the Holy Spirit, then it produces true, if we're led by the Holy Spirit, it produces true character change. We do it in our own will, it's behavior modification. So behavior character change versus behavior modification. One changes you for good, one's temporary. Mike said it better, but
I'm hearing you though. It's a great thing, isn't it? Because when you get it right, it's the behavior versus.
Like your little circle there.
The
Holy Spirit produces character change, which goes outward.
This is character change.
Yeah, and behavior modification is outward.
That's behavior modification. Because I lived 41 years of behavior modification. Well, I still struggle with it because it was 41 years, right? Still. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. I mean, primary means of communication, movies, music, pop culture. Okay. That's the majority share for us and our kids. That's what's influencing us. Those are the ideas that are coming at us, and it's communicated pristinely through novels and movies now and so on. Are core ideas, okay? Changing ideas are communicated in those means. That's why commercials work. That's why Geico is so well known. They don't even have to be, it doesn't have to be about insurance anymore. They just have to say Geico at the end. If they make you laugh and then go, dun, Geico, you're like, I know it. It's recognition. Yes. So they have to, I talk about antenna. You have to have your antenna up all the time. I go, bump. No, that's coming in. That's bad information, bad ideas. Because we're not going to stop the ideas coming in. They're coming, right? Because we're in the world. Okay? But what we need to get good at is detecting and going, false view, false idea. Detect, And primarily a lot of that is truth. You stay in the truth, They tell me, and then people bash it, but, they tell me. I don't know whether it's true, but they tell me. So I'm going to trust the one who told me, as the expert or whatever. That counterfeiters, they look at real $100 bills. Because you have to know what the truth is to be able to detect the counterfeit, the lie. You know what I mean? Because if you showed all the counterfeits, there would be too many, right? So you need to know what the truth looks like so that then you can detect.
So you could boil that down and say, truth helps you detect.
Truth is the detector. Truth helps detect. Because, I'll get a symbol or whatever. Because I always feel like there has to be, sometimes I settle. But truth is the detector. It's if we know the truth, then we don't have to worry about all the lies. You know what I mean? Because we're going to be able to tell the lie when it comes in. Because, the battle for things are changing so fast. You got to hold on to truth. But then you do need some help on picking up because it's deception. It's called deception for a reason. You know what I mean? And we're so susceptible to it, right?
Rejection of truth equals deception.
Rejection of truth will lead. What if we lead to rejection? I'm not challenging it. I'm just saying of truth, because I either do this or this, and it leads. Rejection of truth leads to what, or equals deception. Because, like I said, I'm just going to take a picture of this. This is the feedback time. I want to get better, right? I need to get better all the time. I'm kind of, if I can get better at coaching, I can get better at teaching. That's what most everything I'm trying to input. So that's being a good dad. Mm-hmm. Won't work, right? I'm going to leave it at equal failure then.
especially if they're wanting to go into any type of ministry.
Oh, yeah. And, I'm shaping kids. You heard in mine, I thought full-time ministry was that was my attempt to to go 100% for God. And that was what it was labeled. So that's what I pursued, kind of a thing. And so I pendulum swing a little bit. I'm like, I don't care what you are. Like we've got this excellent painter at Temple right now. Like she won all of our stuff, taps or what, all our level stuff. She went to Fort Worth and won it with this same painting. So like she's with Betsy Price and doing things like that. I'm like, girl, Operation Mobilization has an artist in Italy next summer that is a 4-month stay, and he's going to be working on how to integrate your faith into your painting, into art. Because we've so removed ourselves from art. Art and faith split ways because I don't think we have to explain why in here, but it's a good means of communicating the faith is our art. We need to speak in the nonverbal, the non-linguistic ways,
That just brought me to another point. I got contacted recently because, with Mike's lessons, we always put like an illustration for his lesson.
Yes, that artwork is, yeah.
And there was one, what was it called, Debbie? It was a woman being baptized, and I
Being
used
dead to the law.
being dead to the law, and I used it for spiritual polygamy. I think that was what it's called. Yeah, that's what Mike taught.
Whew, I remember that one, yeah.
And you remember that lesson?
Yeah.
So this lady said, "You're using my painting. Either you put a disclaimer on your page and refer to my website, or you must remove it."
Because she had it copyrighted or whatever. Thanks for the warning.
Thank you for contact. I was super nice to her, and I told her, we started looking at some of her other stuff, how awesome it is to visualize the Word of God. She had a drawing with the tweets and the tears that was stunning. Stunning.
Yes.
I'm talking, so the arts are very important, and you get arts that they got skulls and all of this stuff. The devil the enemy is taking over it. So you're right. I think that there should be more beautiful art for visions of
No, that's your point. There should be,
yeah.
But speaking of Satan, though, she said that same picture, the woman getting baptized, was on a satanic website.
Yeah, she did.
So
Sure.
they took
Sure.
What she did to glorify God, and they took it and used it for their satanic.
She said, "You will take it down." She said, "They took it down, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah."
I was through the website.
Need of her not to charge us for it, or
The Kingdom and the Arts is a worldview website that's working on they're trying to use kingdom theology and art and start getting artists after communicating the messages, And I get excited because I'm a nonverbal I pick up nonverbal communication a lot. So I don't know art, but I know art when I see it. In other words, I get the message, is what I get. I get the message when I see it, though.
What do you think about pure heart equals see God?
Pure heart. Tell me about it.
See God. The pure heart will see God. In other words, if a person has a pure heart, they will reflect the Father. They'll reflect God.
And see, I'm going to get an eyeball or something. That's where art, can't you see how they could with the eye or do, there's things that they can immediately, I can think of, start taking off with as far as the heart and the eye and so on, you know what I mean? There's an artist down there deep, but, it's not going to come out.
You could do a white heart at the beginning of your statement, and then the eyeball, see God. Right? Pure heart, see God.
Exactly. Symbolisms. There you go. Exactly. I've got one. Jesus Messiah on a cross, man. You got to do that. You got Jesus MESI. Okay. Jesus Messiah. There we go.
You should somehow put it about be a living sacrifice, but don't crawl.
Yeah. So, living sacrifices. I'll recognize it with this one. The problem.
Tell that is somebody could draw that. Somebody could draw that.
Oh yeah.
Well, you put the living sacrifice mark on the altar and nail them on there. Don't crawl off, nail them on there.
That's the caption on his T-shirt. Don't crawl off. That's his caption. Don't crawl off. That's your because that's catch. You know, the kids will catch. They'll be like, "Don't crawl off." What does that mean? It means don't crawl off your altar, bud. You know. So anyway, because we need to get these truths, these good ideas. Okay, they're not just good ideas, but we have to think of it. And I'm trying to systematize things. They're truth. But we need to get those good ideas so that we can start achieving good consequences, because because what law is in effect there? Sow and reap, right? Isn't that the law? Isn't that how it works? And that, if we're putting good seed into the ground, we'll get good consequences. Now, how we measure consequence, we think that, maybe here on earth and we're not seeing it or whatever, but we can know that if we're doing good, okay, that good will come out of it, What's beautiful is sometimes God takes what people intended for evil, right, and turns it for good. That's the God we serve, right?
I don't think you would write it, but what we've learned all these years is salvation is a process, not a one-time event. So, salvation of the soul. Of course, you're saved.
Uh-huh.
So, something to do with salvation is a process, not a one.
There's one that's said here. Give me a minute here, because how is it said? Because I've played around with one that's somewhere in that range. Is why I'm triggering on it a little bit, kind of. But the salvation, well, because we're going to want to.
It says that salvation is a process, not an event.
There you go.
Salvation process is also soul
Restoration.
Because we have a soul restoration. One of these was already kind of a soul. It was the character development, right? Oh, talent? No. Behavior versus character change. Yep.
Well, and I heard the buzz phrase, ongoing, what you're talking about right there.
Mm-hmm.
That it's a process, not an event. Ongoing.
It's ongoing.
There's his cross, which is the gift, and there's our cross, that's blocking out. That's our blocking the sanctification. I can't put it in a short little thing, but there's his cross and then there's our cross.
There you go.
I don't know how this fits in, but what you just put up there is an answer to your question that may or may that you had an hour and a half ago.
Good.
Question, and I don't know if that question was a rhetorical question that you were looking for an answer or not. When you said there's so many Catholic charities, why are there no Baptist charities? That's it right there.
This one?
Because for Baptists, once saved, always said, I made a profession of faith. Now I can go do what I want. But Catholics believe that they have to work out
The work.
their salvation. I mean, that they, to a degree, they believe more that there's things that we have to do because we are saved. And people of a Baptist mentality are more, I'm saved, now I can do what I want.
Isn't it a motivation?
That is very important, that right there. It's the process.
The process?
A
Because
lot of people believe it's an event.
I'm not going to get the chapter right, and I don't have a page that I can turn. So, but yeah, Corinthians is dealing with that somewhere around about 6 or so, clearly addressing those works and the necessity of them, or whatever. And once again, theologically, I just had to sit there and struggle. I had to listen to apostate, and because there's still now apostate went from this group to, okay, this is probably apostate. Once understood that, hey, There's salvation, and then there's the
And
walk.
James said, care for the widows and the orphans.
Pure religion, right?
So some people will do that, and other people say, I put my tithe in the plate. You know, when the plate came by, I made the offering, and I've been saved. I can do what I want.
Mm-hmm.
You got those two things.
The work side.
Against each other.
The work side does not. The work begins at salvation, right? Here it is. Well, I mean, and I still haven't put a caption on this, but I don't know it came from here. Saved. I'm saved for a purpose. Because my purpose kind of ended. I mean, as I continued to grow in my understanding of my salvation, it's like my purpose ended. Now I'm going to love God, and I'm going to gratuitously, you know, like I'm giving him tip, you know, right? I mean, that I wasn't thinking quite so blatantly, but I was living that way for sure. I'm just going to kind of tip God because, hey, God, I'm grateful. It was all out of grace, and that was the deal. Is the tension that I didn't understand was I was doing everything for grace, and that's a great motivator. When you see yourself for who you are in the grace, you're like, that's a huge motivator. But then when you put in there the inheritance, it pulls that grace and goes, you really want to fine-tune this. You want to focus. This is your priority. You got to take care of this, you know? So the tension between the grace and that inheritance talk, and I haven't nailed it down yet or whatever, but those two things, it's grace and whatever that appropriate word is that holds you in place to really properly motivate. Because, you know, what I consider intelligent, at least, son, was like, well, then he sees right through it and sees the selfish motive of making the kingdom, right? He says, well, you just want to be rich in the kingdom then. That's why you're doing good. And I said, but now you've already fell off on the intent of the heart. The intent of your heart, if it's to have a bigger palace, that's not the purpose, you know? And who sees the heart? God sees the heart, you know? So, no, go back to the drawing board and challenge it again. You know what I mean? That's what we can always know with the truth is if we have truth, it stands up to the trials and so on.
Patty Balloon used to say that we're set apart for saved to be set apart. So she would say, we're set apart to be set apart. Set apart when we're saved from the world. Now we need to be set apart from just the body who's just, you know.
For the kingdom, right?
So we need to be conforming to the image of Christ, bearing fruit.
Because in studying, I guess with my ethics stuff I was reading, how the Old Testament was so much about set-apartness and holiness, you know? And we're on the same path. We're looking for that holiness. We have the Spirit, so the economy changed a little bit. It's still the same truth working through, but the economy of grace and mercy is what's at hand right now that we know. Yes, John. But he knew well the promises of that condition. In his pureness, those are kind of conditions, aren't they? Of him doing his Father's will. But he knew the promise too. He's able to live with both the promise and the. Does that make sense?
That's what we're supposed to be developing. All of this, everything we do is to develop our relationship with the Father. That's really what we're doing. And He's a holy and just and pure God. And so we should always be motivated to love Him, to draw, and so that our relationship becomes tighter and tighter with Him. As it does, then we'll do His will and not ours.
Yep. It's 15. Anything? Yeah, tell me about his cross, our cross. Yeah. Huh? It's gift, prize. Yeah, because I taught gift and prize.
Gift is his cross.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Right. I know but I'm just like trying to, because I'm gonna probably just have to distinguish the cross or do something. But yeah, because we need that. I'm just trying to be the artist, I guess. Huh? Symbolize. That's my artist coming out. That's about as far as it goes, right? Oh, gosh. But I understand the resistance to ritual, but I was never ritual. You know what I mean? I wasn't very ritualistic from my background. So I loved the rituals. That was part of my thing at Moody is they made us visit different churches and so on, you know. Man, I loved the Lutheran church. I was like, yeah, this is awesome. You know what I mean? But I understood what was being symbolized. You know, without the understanding, I would have been probably lost and gone, what in the world, you know? But anyway.
I recognize that culture and even sports has your own language. If you could capitalize on the buzzwords of those,
Precisely.
especially those two dynamics, and then associate that to a lesson you're trying to get across, like incoming.
Mm-hmm.
Incoming what? You know, asking that question, what can be illustrated with that statement? Or the Energizer Bunny Rabbit, still going.
Mm-hmm.
What can be reflected in that statement?
Exactly.
Those kids already have the jargon.
You're trying to get the language they're already speaking.
Exactly, and show them
And
another
exactly.
way,
Yep.
another way.
That's part of the. You're already here. Well, you're already here. You already because I'm trying to take their experiences, and I'm trying to do the comparison contrast at that point and bring the faith into it. And you can't overdo it, but you certainly get some connection, and it has to just be real, you know.
You mentioned that, grace, and then you're looking for the
Yeah.
intentions. I believe God's unmerited
I
favor.
use the word verses, but I'm not going to like keep that. But that's how I always show the tensions, you know, or whatever. Grace versus what is the wait? Now is the unmerited favor is the first grace.
First grace, but the second,
I need that whole statement. So hang on, I somehow I've missed it or
he calls it the greater.
God's divine influence upon the heart reflected through the light. I thought it was that, but I wanted to. Yeah, I mean it's because it's a truth that they'll experience, and those are the ones kept us on regularly with the kids, you know, because hard work brings a profit. Just the proverb, you know, it doesn't bring you the win, but it brings you profit. You know what I mean? You're going to profit. Because I work with the girls a lot in their strength training or whatever, and frankly, motivating young teenage girls to work hard in the weight room, there's about 4 of them that get it. You know, the rest of them really don't connect. I work hard here, it'll translate where I'm wanting to see performance and so on. We all struggle with doing the things that my health, you know, I need to take better health. I mean, get better health, if I take care of intake, might help with the output. Anything else? I just want to read one passage I think would be appropriate, at least, unless somebody... It's the 1 Corinthians 15. This one, just like, and the only reason I go to it, I just tell you, with these new lenses, you understand my jargon, my information, you know, with this new worldview information, it has made God's word, the spiritual wisdom has gone, whoa, okay, that I see, you know, I'm seeing things now that I never saw before. And isn't that the beauty of God? He'll just keep saying, oh, you're impressed with that? Just keep going, you know. You just wait. I've got something even better, bigger out there just to blow your mind, you know, if you'll pursue me.
He's opening up the mysteries to you.
Yes. I'm telling you that it is the mystery stuff. It's the mysteries. Like I say, I always am balancing in my head, okay, what I'm saying, and then so I stop in the middle or whatever. But, you know, I see those droplets coming, and I'm like, thank you, Lord. And I'm amazed by them. I'm like, this must be the flood. But I know the reality. There's more coming, you know, if you just pursue him, because he's overwhelming, right? God is overwhelming.
What verse is that?
Which one?
1 Corinthians
Oh, I'm just going to look. I was going to read 1 Corinthians 15, 50 to 58. Because like I say, because what I was trying to say is, even as I read through this multiple times this week or whatever, I just, that's why I never could land on a lesson. I kept trying to get it onto a landing spot, and it was like so many things. It's the diversity. It's the answer to because this is a lot about, he's addressing issues in the church. And you would see, what is this knowing that's in 1 Corinthians? Because he addresses what we can know, and because knowledge puffs up, but then there's the knowledge of God, and he's putting the whole fullness of him. A lot of times those tensions help me see, oh, there's a fullness of God, because he is both loving and he is just, and his deity and his manness. He goes, oh, you want to see something? Deity and man. Now you see fullness, right? And we go, I don't understand it, but I kind of see it. All right, Huh? Male and female. Yes. So with those things held, it's when I see the tension, because I'm not willing to say we yet. When I see the tension, I start going, oh, there's fullness here. This is more of a full picture of, because it's the American God, the Mark God, the my culture God. Because culture does guide us. It dictates the lens that we wear, and we know that. The broader we get, the more we know, the more we realize we don't know, right? Kind of stuff. 1 Corinthians 15:50. This just chilled me, I guess, several times. So I tell you, brothers, flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of God, nor does the perishable inherit the imperishable. Behold, I tell you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trump. For the trumpet will sound, and the dead will be raised imperishable, and we will be changed. For this perishable body must put on the imperishable, and the mortal body must put on immortality. When the perishable puts on the imperishable, and the mortal puts on immorality, then shall come to pass the saying that is written. Here we go, folks. I guess maybe because there's been death in the family or whatever, but death is swallowed up in victory. Separation is gone, you guys. Oh, death, where is your victory? Death, where is your sting? The sting of death is sin, and the power of sin is the law. But thanks be to God, who gives us victory through our Lord Jesus Christ. Therefore, my beloved brothers, be steadfast, immovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, knowing that in the Lord, your labor is not in vain. I no longer have to work to try to improve that character. Instead, in the Lord, my work is then able to do all the harvest. Because that's what it is. Physical and non-physical. Being salt and light here as long and as good as and as best as we can, so that others can see that truth, But then knowing also, because of the harvest that he gives, there's an abundance and a realm that we haven't seen yet. We know, and we can maybe even experience in ways, but we haven't seen it yet, But knowing that it's coming, it's good stuff, right?
I want to admonish you.
Okay.
I've been in many churches where I don't see men take leadership very readily.
Mm-hmm.
And for you to get up and share the multifaceted paradigms that the Father brings through you is such a refreshing to my heart, Mark. I appreciate you bringing your facet, your part, your perspective, because it challenges me to go back and relook at things. Maybe that I've always been so comfortable with or familiar with, but to make me go back and say, now wait a minute, maybe that's where I'm comfortable working and flowing, but my audience may not be comfortable there. And so you're challenging me to take another look at presentation because you've done an outstanding presentation, in my opinion.
Mhm.
The teacher has been here. The Holy Spirit has been speaking through you.
Good. That's what I
And
want.
if you ever question why Mike asked you to speak, he doesn't
Mm.
ask people to speak. So he knew intuitively,
Mhm.
he knew instinctively that you had some stuff you were contributing, and he wanted to partake of it. Now, I put words in his mouth. He's not saying it, but
mhm.
he will watch these,
Mhm.
and he will partake, and he will appreciate your perspective and the way you bring things. And I know other men in this room where they may not can connect the way a woman connects it, but you bring the facet that they can lay hold of and connect, and it starts bringing things into place, line on line. Well done.
God be the glory. That was the heavy prayer. I was like, Lord, just use me. Lord, use me, because the first experience was, okay, PhD undergraduate. That was the first thought, kind of stuff. But, yeah. God be the glory.
So you're giving us spiritual food.
I wanted just a little bit of food. I hope you got a snack at least. All right, that was it. You got it.
We got spiritual food of value, not depleted food.
Yes, not depleted. I like that. Yes. Yeah, the not depleted stuff. We want the stuff that has value. Yes.
And see, I see it like a giant diamond. And I'm seeing the multifacets of that gemstone, bringing out the brilliance and the glory of God.
Yes.
You laid out each point. I learned you to continue on that tree. I wanted to get those roots established.
Yeah.
And I don't have that kind of in my heart. I want that.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know.
I want tabernacle, by the way. I'm going to have to go back. Y'all have to point me in the right direction for the video, because, boy, the tabernacle and the understanding of worship in the shadow or the, because in my upbringing, it was like, I'm going to get the word here. It's going to take me just a second. But type, woo-hoo, it was like, woo-hoo, stay off of type, because it was danger zone, that sort of thing. You can take the word and do whatever you want with it. But I see it handled so carefully in here and like surgically, just right through. And then all of a sudden, then you see the thread. You say, there it goes. And then it just flies. And like, it's not like hard because it's the truth and it's just going. You know what I mean? But when you start to see it, oh man, for this soul who was on the other side, like what you're talking about of the, you know what I mean? Of not getting a lot of exposure. Because, in the teaching, as I was at college, all that kind of stuff, it was like, be careful of type. They weren't they knew they couldn't like totally annihilate it, but they were like, suppress it, keep it down there. Don't turn it loose. And that's what it is. Don't allow it to get turned loose. You got to turn it loose,
Don't you think that's the fear for a person standing where you are to actually turn the Holy Spirit loose and let Him be? I mean, that's scary. You don't know what the outcome's going to be because He knows where He's going and you don't know where He's going.
I just want to be on the same, it's like, don't let me get in the way, man, I'm going to park over here and can you somehow, yeah. Because one other just like quick thought, because I read this article to these kids and it just so overwhelmed me when I read the line. It was an article addressing the church trying to be self-preserving. And it just ripped me when I read it because the guy then wrote, the majority of his article was about the early Christians in Rome when the plague hit and they were the ones running into the city while everybody else is running out, and their purpose, their mindset, the author was saying was, well, God loves people, so we need to go to these people. And that love had so many people convert and believe because they saw the love. They're like, what they love like that, it's that love that's infectious, that is the light, right? But we struggle with self-preservation. And I understand that there's a tension. There's a tension between self-preservation and like making sure our children have a future. What is the role between making sure our children have a future in some way, but then, putting it all on the line too, and we have to have spiritual wisdom to know because each one of us in our own facet kind of a thing have to answer questions like that, So Lord help us, right? Lord help us. Let's pray then. Thank you. And it is. I mean, it is a blessing to get to share with us, and that's what this is. This is us. This is the community, and it is such a blessing. So let's pray. Father, we thank you for the blessings that sometimes we just don't even know. We couldn't expect. We can't understand. We don't know. But you know, and you bless, and we thank you for it. Help us to keep our vision clear, not to fall asleep, to pursue you with passion, with a reckless abandonment at the time that you call, in every facet of our life. We thank you for our diversity, and we thank you for our difference, and help us to not be afraid of the differences, but to recognize them and be able to say, Lord, you are amazing. You are diverse. And your truth, though, holds us firm. So it is in your fullness that we just once again are in awe. And so we thank you that we get to experience that. Lord, help. Thank you for the revelation of that, and that we would each take it and not just be awed by it, but that it be life-changing. It's in Jesus' name that we pray.